We have all experienced the exhausting reality of pouring our time, loyalty, and emotional energy into someone who treats our presence like background noise. It is a modern trap to sit anxiously by your phone, continuously refresh your screen, and replay past conversations in your head while searching for the exact moment things went wrong. In these moments, it is incredibly easy to internalize their distance and blame yourself for not being enough. However, the deep pain you are feeling in this situation does not actually stem from their rejection or their inability to see your worth. The true source of your suffering is your own refusal to walk away from a dynamic that actively diminishes you. You are essentially keeping yourself trapped in a loop of expectation, waiting for a breakthrough from someone who has already shown you who they are. Stoicism provides a powerful antidote to this emotional cycle by forcing us to look at where our control actually lies. The philosophy teaches us that you have absolutely zero control over another person's mind, preferences, or capacity to appreciate you, making it completely futile to beg or perform for their validation. What you do control, completely and entirely, is how you treat yourself and where you choose to invest your energy. Every time you stay in a place where you are ignored or merely tolerated, you are actively choosing to discount your own value. If you are truly tired of living in a state of constant emotional confusion and are ready to stop the subtle self-betrayal of chasing people who do not care, you have to shift your focus inward. Reclaiming your power starts with adopting a few dignified, rational responses that prioritize your peace of mind over their temporary attention. The exact moment you start trying to convince someone of your importance or try to argue your case for why you deserve their respect, you have already lost the battle. The ancient Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the thoughts, judgments, and opinions of other people are completely outside of your personal control, making it a waste of your mental energy to try and manipulate them. Despite this truth, so many people completely exhaust themselves by chasing after individuals who are firmly committed to ignoring them. You might find yourself over-explaining your intentions, giving way too much of your time, and constantly performing or changing who you are just to catch a fleeting moment of appreciation. This endless cycle of trying to prove yourself only ends up draining your confidence and leaving you feeling more invisible than before. To understand why this approach fails, think about what happens if you carry a block of pure gold into a room filled with people who only understand and value cheap plastic. The gold does not suddenly become worthless just because the people in that room cannot see its true utility or beauty. It is simply being displayed in the entirely wrong environment. In the same way, begging for recognition from someone who lacks the capacity to appreciate you does nothing to change your inherent value. Your worth as a person does not magically increase when someone flatters you, nor does it drop into nothingness when they choose to ignore your texts or cold shoulder you. Real confidence comes from realizing that your value is independent of external validation, and the precise moment you stop trying to prove yourself to people who do not care is the moment you instantly reclaim your self-respect. Words are incredibly cheap, easy to manufacture, and highly addictive to listen to when you are craving validation. It is dangerously easy to get trapped in a holding pattern by comforting phrases like, "I am just really busy right now," or "maybe we can try again one day." These verbal crumbs keep you hooked because they feed your hope, but Stoicism forces us to drop the illusions and anchor ourselves strictly in reality rather than comforting fantasies. The philosophy demands that you look objectively at what is actually happening right in front of you, rather than focusing on a romanticized version of what you desperately wish were true. When you judge a situation based on potential instead of present facts, you actively choose to participate in your own heartbreak. If someone constantly tells you how much they care about you, but their daily behavior tells an entirely different story by dismissing your feelings, ignoring your messages for days, or only reaching out when they need something, you must believe the pattern over the promise. The brutal reality of human nature is that people always find a way to make time and space for the things and the people they truly prioritize. If your interactions with someone leave you in a state of constant confusion, forced to decipher mixed signals and listen to endless excuses, then that confusion itself is the definitive answer you are looking for. You have to stop falling in love with a future version of someone that does not exist and start reading the room based on the hard evidence of how they treat you right now. True power never requires a loud, dramatic confrontation or a massive scene to prove a point. You do not need to sit down and compose a long emotional text message detailing every single way they hurt you, nor do you need to demand an apology or a final conversation for closure. When you pour your anger, frustration, and explanations into someone who has already proven they do not value your time, you are simply wasting even more of your own limited energy on a losing investment. Giving them a massive reaction often just feeds their ego or gives them a reason to label you as dramatic, completely missing the point of your pain. Instead of generating unnecessary drama, the most dignified path is to practice a quiet withdrawal. This means you simply make a silent decision to become completely unavailable to disrespect. You stop initiating the conversations, you stop over-explaining your actions, and you completely stop trying to single-handedly rescue a connection that has been one-sided from the very beginning. You are under no obligation to announce your departure or explain why you are stepping back. If they only seem to notice you are gone when they suddenly lose the perks, favors, and attention that came with your presence, then they never actually valued the bond you shared anyway. Your emotional energy is a sacred, finite resource, and you need to save it entirely for the places and people where it is naturally respected and returned. Most men treat the sting of rejection as definitive proof that they are somehow lacking or fundamentally not enough. They look in the mirror and convince themselves that they are not successful enough, not attractive enough, or that they simply failed to say the exact right words to keep someone interested. Stoics, however, view these painful hardships through a completely different lens, seeing every single moment of disappointment not as a punishment, but as a rigorous training ground for character. Instead of wasting your mental energy asking yourself why you were not chosen by someone else, you need to flip the narrative and ask how you can use this precise moment of emotional friction to build a far better, more resilient version of yourself. The most effective response to being brushed aside is to take all of that heavy, rejected energy and pour it entirely inward into your own personal development. Use that frustration as fuel to master your daily discipline, push your physical limits in your fitness routine, cultivate true emotional control, accelerate your career goals, and invest heavily in the friendships that actually sustain you. When you deliberately build a high-quality life that is anchored in genuine purpose and self-improvement, the shifting opinions of someone who chose to ignore you will naturally become completely irrelevant to your day-to-day happiness. Ultimately, a major rejection has the power to either shatter a weak identity or forge an incredibly strong one, and you are the only one who gets to decide which of those two paths you take. There is a massive fundamental difference between issuing an ultimatum and quietly enforcing a personal standard. An ultimatum is essentially a threat that sounds like a desperate plea for change, placing all the power in the other person's hands by making your next move entirely dependent on their behavior. This approach keeps your life completely centered around what they choose to do, which often leads to endless arguments and empty promises. A standard, on the other hand, is an internal boundary you set strictly for yourself that dictates what you will allow into your personal space. It is a firm declaration that you simply do not remain in environments or relationships where basic respect is missing. Enforcing a standard requires absolutely no dramatic speeches, no begging, and no painful negotiations, because your response to disrespect is already decided by your own principles. When you fail to clearly define what is acceptable treatment, you inadvertently open the door to tolerate almost any kind of poor behavior. If you find yourself consistently accepting emotional crumbs, sudden coldness, and confusing mixed signals, it is a clear sign that you need to completely rewrite your personal rules of engagement. Many people lower their guard because they are terrified of being alone, but the reality is that loneliness experienced with your dignity intact heals infinitely faster than keeping company with someone who does not respect you. You have to stop extending your patience, your time, and your understanding to individuals who consistently fail to meet the most basic standards of human decency. Reclaiming your personal boundaries means recognizing that protecting your peace of mind is always more important than trying to fix someone who is comfortable mistreating you. When someone treats you as if you are completely disposable, your ego instantly flares up and demands some form of cosmic justice or victory. You get caught up in fantasies of making them deeply regret losing you, imagining scenarios where they come crawling back, chase after your attention, and finally feel the exact same stinging pain they inflicted on you. However, harboring this intense craving for revenge keeps you entirely chained and emotionally dependent on the very person you need to separate yourself from. Even when you are just daydreaming about showing them how well you are doing without them, they are still effectively running your thoughts and dictating your emotional state from afar. True independence cannot grow in a mind that is constantly looking backward, trying to score points against someone who has already moved on. The ultimate victory in these situations is never about getting even. It is about achieving total, unbothered peace of mind. Real personal power means reaching a point in your life where you genuinely do not care whether they regret their actions, realize your worth, or ever think about you again. The most devastating and elegant response to disrespect is not a grand retaliatory gesture, but becoming entirely free from the need for their validation in the first place. When your internal sense of stability and peace matters infinitely more to you than someone else's fleeting opinion or bad behavior, you win back complete control over your life. A man who has mastered this level of self-contained peace becomes entirely impossible for anyone else to manipulate or control. The most challenging truth you have to face in these situations is often the exact realization that sets you completely free. The real wound that is causing you so much pain is not actually the fact that this person failed to see your value or treat you with care. The deeper, more honest wound is that you did not value yourself enough to pack up and leave the moment the disrespect became a pattern. Acknowledging this can feel incredibly heavy at first, but it is ultimately liberating because it shifts the power back into your hands. As long as you blame your unhappiness entirely on their bad behavior, you remain a helpless bystander waiting for them to change. The moment you recognize that you chose to stay and accept less than you deserved, you realize that you also have the power to choose differently moving forward. You have absolutely zero control over who appreciates your presence, who recognizes your potential, or who decides to treat you with the respect you earn, but you retain absolute, total control over who gets access to your life and your energy. You are under no obligation whatsoever to remain in any space or relationship where you are merely tolerated like background noise rather than genuinely celebrated. You do not need to shrink your personality, lower your standards, or compromise your peace of mind just to fit comfortably into someone else's narrow world. The most powerful move you can make is to simply walk away with your head held high, completely bypassing the need for a dramatic argument or a final confrontation. Pour all of that displaced focus entirely into your own personal growth. Build a life you are genuinely proud of and allow your complete absence to do all the talking for you.